Isn't it interesting that the human species is okay with the idea of gods or deities or sons of gods descending down from the heavens to pass on wisdom or to help mankind, with very little, if any, evidence of these miracles happening beyond anecdotes or stories or scrolls or a book? But then the idea of other beyond strange phenomena, or even considering them as a possibility, like, say, UFOs, despite that those actually have some hard data evidence for their existence, people think that is a fantasy or a joke. And whether or not you are particularly religious, you have to admit the fact that most people are willing to at least accept the idea of gods or deities or sons of gods as either actual fact or at least something that's acceptable to believe in. Now, I believe wholeheartedly that some miracles have happened in our past on this planet, most likely many times. And what there were for those miracles were very credible witnesses to obviously incredible things. And yet these are acceptable as absolute truths without any hard evidence. But here we are, billions of believers worldwide. Did you know that nearly 80% of the world's population are affiliated with the big four religions: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, or Buddhism? Are these stories not extraordinary claims without any extraordinary evidence? Because there's definitely no good videos out there, at least that I could find. So how can these stories be so devoutly accepted, and yet the presence of something like UFOs that are actually caught on modern day data recording devices be so devoutly rejected repeatedly? Because UFO sightings and interactions have been recorded around the world basically daily for decades, if not millennia. And more recently, many of them with hard data recorded by our militaries, other countries' militaries, commercial airline pilots, the FAA, NORAD, NASA, not to mention UFOs have an entire budget within our government agencies, and now even major university institutions. Shout out Dr. Avi Loeb and Dr. Gary Nolan, and of course the godfather of them all, Dr. Jacques Vallée. And yet this topic can have a stigma so strong that people refuse to even consider it. So really, I ask you, what the is going on? And considering both of these topics' abilities to shatter paradigms, shouldn't they not be both looked at equally as important to be studied and try to be understood? Theology's been around and studied for centuries, and yet strange phenomena like UFOs is just simply too far out there. On the basis of their apparent miracles of physics, which are often presented when seen by credible witnesses or tracked on radar, would seem to be some of the most important new discoveries and stories told in human history, simply for what they represent in terms of possibility for scientific and technological evolution, and in how it may help us see a bigger picture and evolve and grow as a species. What we need are legitimate scientists and their intellectual armies to examine the data, past and present, to conduct unbiased studies and look at this subject without bias or ridicule. And credit to those in the past who have tried, because admittedly, there are a lot of sketchy rabbit holes, intentional misinformation agents that are rampant and surround this topic. And as we'll get into on this channel, that's completely by design, because truly this subject brings out the fringe of reality and collides it with the fringe of society, create a dangerous mix of sensationalism, often not based in scientific research or reporting. And that we have to admit. But how are we expected to look at this subject with science when largely the ego of science isn't even willing to admit that there's something there to look at? If we're going to get to the bottom of this mystery and peel back the layers of debunking and ridicule and truly look at this phenomena in the face to try to find out what it truly is and what seems to be potentially known by a tiny, select, powerful few, politics and preconceived judgments must be put aside. Personal devout beliefs must be put aside. The ego of science, and more broadly, the ego of man, must be put aside. And we must be willing to face and potentially accept the fact that we may not be the greatest, most intelligent thing that our deity or God or evolution has ever created. And I say the time is now, right now, for our species to stop sticking our collective heads in the sand and evolve. And if you think this subject and this topic is important and needs to be heard by more people, then follow along with the adventure. That's the best thing you can do. And who knows, maybe you will help awaken a new paradigm in someone that you will probably never meet. And if you want to do some homework and you want to see some evidence, I've left links down below in this video so that you can dive in. But if you don't want to read, then make sure to subscribe to this channel and follow along. And if you want to hear the story of the major world government that admitted UFOs and extraterrestrials were real years ago, then watch this video here. And until next time, thank you for watching. My name is Jason. This has been Beyond Strangeness. I hope to see you again soon. Take care, my friend.